Hello, welcome to the eScalate grants application presentation, going through the details of the grants relating to the eScalate programme. My name is James Rule. I'm a consultant acting as the compliance manager for Oxlep, advising them on eligibility and compliance with ERDF rules and regulations. Hopefully you've already seen the general overview presentation. Press that button. Which goes through overarching eligibility questions and provides some details, hints and tips on how not to write an application. This session is going to focus on the grants available under the eScalate programme. So we'll do an overview of eScalate. We'll run through the grant support that is available under this programme, what the eligible activities for that are, and then some details about how the eScalate grants will actually work in practice. If, as a result of the presentation, you have any questions that are not answered in the guidance notes or covered in the frequently asked questions that are available on the website, please email them to the business@oxfordshirelep.com email address. So the eScalate programme has three key strands. There is support in the form of one-to-one direct business support and one-to-many business support for social enterprises or businesses with a social purpose, for social good. There's also an element that was previously just focused around access to finance support for scale-up businesses, more on those later. But in the aftermath of the COVID situation, we've been able to expand the eligibility for that to all startup and growth businesses. And the additional part is the eScalate grant scheme, which is the main focus of this presentation. So the table that you can see on the screen now sets out the original budget amount for the eScalate programme in terms of grants. We had around about 752,000 to date. So at the point of recording this on the 11th of September 2020, we have committed £393,543.49, which means that we have an available pot remaining of £358,456.51. So we are just over halfway through the available budget for the grants, and the grants have been running for just over a year now. So that suggests, making no promises, that we will run out of available budget for eScalate grants at some point in the next 9 to 12 months. The minimum grant that is available is £1,000, and the maximum grant that's available is £25,000 under the programme. And the grant rate is set at 50%. That is emboldened and written in red because we are still receiving probably about half of the eScalate grant applications at grant rates other than 50%. The grant rate for an eScalate grant is fixed. We cannot vary it. We can only pay 50% of your total costs, no more and no less. The reason for that is that is how the programme has been designed, and that if we vary the grant rate, we will not be able to balance the programme budget when we make our claims to the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government. It's highlighted in red and bold to try and remind people and encourage them that they should submit applications at a 50% grant rate. As the compliance manager, there is a part of me that wants to say any application that comes in with a grant rate that is not 50%, we will not assess, we will just send it back. However, the rest of the eScalate team are a little more generous than I am. So we are continuing to process and assess and review grants that come in at different grant rates, but under no circumstances would a grant offer letter be issued for anything other than 50%. One thing to note is that we're keen to award grants to as many Oxfordshire SMEs as possible. And although we're just going to continue to hold further rounds until all the available budget is committed, it doesn't take too much maths to work out that if you divide the 358,500 that we have left by the maximum grant of 25,000, that's not a particularly high number of grants. Of course, if you divide it by 1,000, then that's 358 grants, which I suspect is going to be a little bit difficult to manage. Because we're keen to award grants to as many Oxfordshire businesses as possible, we would encourage you to think carefully about the costs that you include and obviously ask for what you need, but please make sure that the costs are realistic. Don't overinflate your total project costs just because the maximum grant available is £25,000. That is a limit, it is not a target. In terms of eligibility, I mentioned earlier that any startup and growth business can apply for an eScalate grant. You must, however, be, in the European vernacular, an undertaking. So that means that a pre-start entrepreneur, somebody who is considering starting a business, just has a business idea, cannot receive an eScalate grant. It is possible for you to apply for one, but you must have started a business, either as a sole trader registered with HMRC or registering business on Companies House or some other formation approach, by the point at which the grant is awarded. The other target group that were in the programme from the beginning are the scale-up businesses. Now, these are development stage businesses looking to grow through increased market access, increasing revenues, growing their employees, and collaborating with other established companies. Essentially, they're either growing by 20% increase in employees or 20% increase in turnover, or both each year, or they have the potential to achieve that level of growth. And a requirement would be for those sort of businesses to explain how accessing a grant would actually help them to achieve that 20% a year growth. The other part of the eScalate programme is focused around what we previously called social enterprises, but we now refer to as enterprises for social good. So this would include enterprising charities, pure social enterprises, social entrepreneurs, and purposeful businesses. So this includes everything from charities that are looking to set up commercial arms and become more enterprising, through to companies that aim at profit with a purpose. So we use the terms purposeful businesses or enterprises for social good. So how do we assess that? How do you know whether you fall into that category? The first thing would be to have a conversation with our social enterprise advisors, but beyond that, we have a fairly simple checklist. So does your business have a clear social and/or environmental mission, which is set out in your governing documents? Do you generate your income through trade? So are you actually a business, an undertaking? Do you reinvest the majority of your profits back into the business or for your social environmental mission? You have to be autonomous of the state, so you can't be government controlled. And you do need to be majority controlled in the interests of the social mission. And of course, you need to be accountable and transparent. If you meet those requirements, then you fall within the category of enterprises for social good. As I will say several times during the other presentation, the overarching presentation, and this one, if in doubt, ask the eScalate team. We're always happy to answer questions. It's much easier to answer those questions now rather than have you submit an application to us and to be turned down on the basis that you haven't made the case for being an enterprise for social good. Within the sign-up form to the eScalate programme, we therefore ask 3 questions, and you need to tick at least one of these. Have you been established to enable positive social and/or environmental change? Are you committed to reinvesting the principal proportion of profits and income towards achieving positive social and/or environmental objectives? Or are you a purpose-driven company? And effectively, you're demonstrating that you're striving for and achieving a more positive social and environmental impact. So, for example, you could be a certified B Corp or similar, or working towards it. You will already have completed that declaration as part of your sign up into the eScalate program. And that will tell you whether you fall within the enterprise for social good category or the all other businesses category. So in terms of the eligible activities, the eScalate grants for the scale-up businesses, that's those businesses who are growing or are looking to grow turnover or staff numbers by 20% a year. It covers access to finance consultancy and specialist consultancy to help the business become investment ready. So this is all about supporting you onto the next step of your journey. So it could be developing a generic pitch deck for your business. It could be some specific support related to putting in place systems, processes that you would require in order to be able to raise finance in the future. It's got to tie back to access to finance. What we can't do is help you with anything that is specific to one identified investor. So we could help you, you could use the grant money to fund the drafting of a generic pitch deck for your business. What we wouldn't be able to help you do would be to draft a specific pitch deck for use with ABC Investors Limited. For all other businesses, now this is businesses for social good and the startup and growth businesses that don't qualify as a scale up, the grant can be used quite widely. So it can be redesigning a business model, development of new products or services, plans for exports and diversification. Effectively, we're looking at addressing barriers to growth and helping startup and growth businesses to grow. Really, we're looking at increased sales, improved productivity and profitability, improved business processes, and a key target for the program, creating jobs. So how does it all work? The eScalate grants are gratifyingly simple in operation because they're given at a fixed 50% rate. So, for example, at grant offer letter stage, you are forecasting total eligible spend of £10,000. You will therefore receive a grant offer letter that offers you a maximum grant of £5,000 based at 50% of your total eligible spend. Now, we all know that the content of a grant offer letter is a forecast, and that in the real world, by the time you completed your project, 9 times out of 10, it will not look to the penny exactly as the forecast looked. So we've mapped out 2 different scenarios in the bottom half of the slide. In the first scenario, effectively you underspend. Your project actually only costs you £8,000. This means that the maximum grant we can pay you is limited to £4,000. So that's 50% of your total spend. In the second scenario, the project has actually cost more than the 10,000 that you forecast. It costs 12,000. Based on the grant offer letter that we've issued, the maximum that we can then pay is £5,000, which is the maximum grant value that is offered in the letter. So you will either get 50% of your total spend up to a maximum grant value, which is set out in the letter. So those are the specifics on the eScalate grant program. For more information, you're more than welcome to watch this particular presentation again. You can watch the generic overview presentation that covers both the ISFB Go Create program and the eScalate grants. Covers things like overarching eligibility for both programs and some details on how not to write a grant application. The slides, the guidance notes, and as you're obviously aware, The recording of this webinar will be on the Oxlet website, as will the frequently asked questions relating to the programmes. These will be updated and republished whenever additional questions have been asked, where the answers are not covered elsewhere. If you do have questions, please email them in to the business@oxfordshirelep.com email address, and we will get back to you and include those questions where necessary in the FAQs. That's the end of the presentation. I hope everyone has found it useful. Good luck.